And we're on to our last sleeve. This is the very, very cute puff sleeve, which you've all been waiting for. I've already done loads of videos on how to put this kind of sleeve in, how to put a ruffle in the top and all sorts of piping. So you can go back to those videos. So we're going to make this wonderful little sleeve. And the clue in this is same as we did with the facing, that you have the seam hidden in there and then it's turned up. So you have a totally clean edge here. It's very, very easy, probably the easiest sleeve to put in. So these are the pieces you need, and I've ironed my interfacing onto the facing. I would actually iron it onto the outside because we're going to put a ribbon on, and it made it harder not having that kind of support. So I would just iron the interfacing onto the outside. And I want to show you how you can get a ribbon into the exact position that you want. So if this is turned up and I want my ribbon to sit exactly there, let's just have a look at my finished item, and you can see we have the same distance here all the way around, and how to get that perfectly right. I want to show you a little trick for that. When you're working with ribbon, make sure that you have a new needle in it, or a needle that hasn't got a snag, because it will pull the threads in that ribbon. I had that on mine on the first one, and I actually changed my needle, so I've learned something. So what I'm going to do now is take my little sewing machine. I'm going to sew in a stitch now 1.5 centimeters away from the edge, so that when the centimeter allowance comes away and my ribbon is on, I've got just 2 mils showing. So let's do this. We're going to put it under so it sits exactly on the 1.5. Make sure your stitch length is up at 4.5 so that you can pull it back out if it is indeed visible. It is good to use the contrast color so that you can see where the ribbon needs to go. This little stitching line will guide us. Be very steady as you move it all the way around the marking that you see on your sewing machine for the 1.5. Go under the sewing machine, then make sure that you get your stitch length back down to 2.5. Log in your stitches. Now I can put my ribbon on here like this while I'm sewing. I'm not going to pin anything, and I'm going to pop it directly on that line so it's not over it, it's just on the side. And that will help me get this in really perfectly well. You might want to pull the ribbon over a tiny bit to the left while you're sewing, just to get into the swing of this, so that it sits directly on that edge. And now I'm gently going to move this round, and my eye is going to be on the edge of my presser foot so that I can guide it around like you can see me here doing, all the way around, and it's absolutely no problem at all. That looks pretty perfect to me. It really is a very good technique to have this kind of line on there to gauge yourself, because it's not easy to get it in right otherwise. And like this, as long as you go slow and steady, it'll be perfect. So now I'm going to sew it in on the other side as well. That looks absolutely perfect. It's really is good. So now I can take my facing, put it over the top, right side's facing here, and I'm just going to put a few pins in like this, not along where I'm stitching, and just get in the way. I just don't want it to move. Okay, so turn this back over. Or you could stitch from this side, it doesn't really matter. If you can see through, if you use a white, I'm not sure whether it's going to confuse you or help you. I would stitch it from this side because that was your gauge, and the edge has to be exactly the same, obviously. So I would stitch from this side, and we're now going to do exactly 1 centimeter seam allowance. Oh, how exciting is this? Let's get this under. 1 centimeter seam allowance. Trust yourself, don't look where you've previously sewn, just line it up with the edge, really steady all the way around. Do. And let's have a look how I did. You pull this along, look at that. That's quite nice. I would say that's almost perfect. And if you have gone over a little bit too much to the other side, again, you can do the same thing where you just roll it over a bit. So what we want to do now is to understitch it. Now that we've got this together and it looks really spiffing, what we want to do is close our side seams. So I'm going to go back, back on the sewing machine here, make sure this is nicely lined up, and I'm going to close my side seam. Next step is to iron the seam apart. Lovely. Whoops, there we go. Very nice. Now that that's lovely and ironed, I can turn it over like that. Ooh, that is really nice. I'm going to turn it inside out. With a bit of luck, both will look exactly the same. If I've done it right. Now, you could, of course, make it a little bit easier on yourself. To have just a couple of mil showing is really hard. You could go down side to not 1.5 but to 2 centimeters, have it a little bit lower, give yourself a little bit more leeway just in case it needs it, and that will work as well. So now, to make sure that when I put this on it's easy to do, I'm going to just sew around the edge, just once, very close to the edge. Just move the fabric around while you're sewing, and then just off the edge. It doesn't have to be a small stitch, any stitch will do. It's just so it doesn't push and pull when you're putting it on. Now I'm going to do my sleeve. The first thing to do is put the gather threads in, and we want to go from one side to the other, and we're going to put 2 in the top, and then at the bottom here I'm going to start here just over where my snip is, and I'm going to lock in my stitch like I did on the top at the Virginia, just with a few stitches, so it does pull still out, but the likelihood is that these threads are not going to be pulled out, or there can be staying in there, it doesn't really matter. So back to this here. So start basically where the front snip is, put the stitch length back up to 4.5 and then move all the way around close to the edge. And the next one is going to be foot width from the one we're just putting in now. And now I'm also going to do the lower one as promised. So you start a little bit before, same thing. Look in that stitch at the end. And second line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my gather threads already before I put it in. Usually I don't do that, but with a puff sleeve, the easiest sleeve on the block, you can easily do that. And the rule of thumb is really that you want to gather it for 4 centimeters on either side. So if I take my measurement here, you can see that's almost 4. I do the same on the other side. I just pull it from this side up to there, about 4 centimeters. Yep. On the lower end where I've got my little gather where the turn-up is going to go over, I'm going to pick them up out from the side and I'm going to pull it as close as it will go, and that's usually right. Next step is to just close that little seam. Now I'm just going to iron that seam apart. There we go. Lovely. And I can now put on there we go. That light. And now I can put my little cuff onto my sleeve. So the right side here and the right side there go on top of each other. So effectively we're going to have wrong side against right side, right? And it's going to pop this in here. Usually it's just right, you know, if you pulled it as much as you could. It's just really not difficult. So now I'm going to put my thread around here with a figure of 8 and distribute them a bit more, because here's my snips, so I want to have some of that coming over to that side, right? So it's that 3 centimeters just over. It's actually a little bit more here, but there we go. And now I'm going to sew from this side, so I can just pin it from this side. As long as it's distributed well on the other side, that'll do. It's way easier to sew it from this side, and when you try to do it from the other side, it's going to be pushing a little bit, and then you get a little pleat in this fabric here, so you don't really want to do that. You want to make sure that you sew from this side. So now we're going to go back on the sewing machine and just sew it in 1 centimeter seam allowance, and start anywhere on it and then just move it around. Make sure the gathers are nice and flat. That's looking really, really nice. Quite impressed with that. Now all I have to do is overlock it. So now I'm going to do some understitching again because we are loving that understitching. So you fold up your seam allowance so that it sits right there, and we're going to stitch it down there. Going to go inside and stitch it down there. There we go, that's in already. It is a really nice sleeve to do. It's actually quite simple. And with all those other videos I've got for it, from piping to inserting ruffle, putting diamantes on, all sorts of things I've done for this. So, and those are all the videos that have to do with the Western blouse, because that's the Western blouse sleeve here. And that is also a really, really cool pattern, which I will extend to H12. And in this pattern pack, you already have it extended to that size. So sleeves are the first to be extended. Beautiful. Now all I have to do here is roll this up now, like that, and press it. Next step is to put my sleeve in. Old method, because I've got that one in already, it doesn't really matter, but I can see that this is my left sleeve. I put it on my left arm, and then I go through my left armhole, turn it to the inside, because sometimes you have so many threads and stuff hanging, you start not seeing where you need to go anymore, especially when you start to sew. So this is a really good way, because there's only one seam, so you know which one goes together. Put a vertical pin in there, then grab the sleeve head top and put that onto the sleeve head. There we are. Put another vertical pin in. Right. Again, we've just done this with the other one already, but let's do this again. The first few pins always go in flat. You roll the fabric over your fingers, because I've got brilliant light. The sun's just coming round, and that gives me such good light. So that I'm going to do this again. So 2 pins is the rule of thumb that go in without holding anything in, and you don't need to hold anything in anyway, because this is, whoops, something's come apart here. Quick pin will make sure that it doesn't fall over. This one is so good because you don't really need to worry about that too much, because obviously it's a puff sleeve. It's ideal for people that just starting to sew, because you can't go wrong. So when it fits on, take a pin and secure. Right, and now the rule of thumb is your gathers should go 4 centimeters either side. That always looks perfect. It just seems to be the magic number. So I'm gonna go, oh, it's just to where I've gathered it. Well, that's a bit of luck, isn't it? So I'm gonna just move them down to that point. So I know now that's going to look good. We're going to turn it inside out, of course, to check it as well. Always check what you're doing before you start sewing. There, a bit more over. I'll do the same on the other side. It looks good. Now, the next step is to turn it out and have a look. Let's turn this back up just so we get a good look. And we can see where the gathers start. So they start about 2 centimeters in. Go over to the other side and see if that's the same here, and it is. So that's good. And that's fluke, people. I don't always have it right. And this looks okay as well. There seem to be a little bit more gather. No, I think that's fine too. So make sure that both sides are the same before you start sewing in. You don't want to gather like, which is whoops up there, and then on the other side it's way lower down. It doesn't look nice. It doesn't take much to check it and repin it if you have to, and just move your gathers. So but summing this up is the 4 centimeter rule from sleeve head point to the front and to the back will give you perfect results. And now I can just sew this in. We can again start anywhere on here, and you can move the cuff out of the way because we haven't attached that yet. That's our last little thing we have to do in a minute. So let's go all the way around. We can move the cuff down because we haven't turned it up and stitched in the ditch yet because it would get in the way. So we do that straight after. So you can move the cuff out of the way. Have a look at your gathers and make sure they sit really nicely, nice and even. Now, can't wait to serge this because it is full of thread. Look! It's a thread disaster. Right, so I'm just going to cut a few off just so I can see what I'm doing. That's the other thing. Any beginner watching this, it's like, right, you know, I remember that when I first started sewing, this messiness used to really confuse me. I'd be going like, what is this? Like I said, I was very messy as well. And my dad bought me my first sewing machine. And this is not a romantic story that now follows, because I bought myself some really expensive fabric. Wanted to make myself a sort of like little hanger for a blouse underneath it and stuff. It was all the, what was her name? Oh, what was her name? You know, Harry and Sally, that actress. Anyway, it was that time, and she was wearing all these kind of clothes, and I wanted to make Meg Ryan. That's it. I wanted to make a dress that would, you know, that Meg Ryan look, you know, cutie little girly look, and I was a skinny little thing. Bought this really expensive fabric, and well, you can guess what happened. The dress didn't come out right. The pattern I bought from Border, I think it was awful. It didn't fit to the sizing at all. It looked terrible. I didn't understand the instructions, and the expensive fabric, the dress went in the bin, and I don't think I ever used that sewing machine again. So yeah. And it was a cheap sewing machine as well, so I think my dad wanted to do well, but he didn't realize that there's a difference. So when you buy your first sewing machine, it's almost more important to have a really good one than when you can sew. I mean, I can sew on the most darndest machine ever, and it'll come out very nice. That's like people that can take beautiful photographs. You give them a really plain camera that's like 20 years old, and they take better pictures than you do with a really new, you know, brilliant camera. So, and it's the same thing. You need quite good equipment when you don't really know what you're doing. So I've got my Pfaff. This is the model app, the Pfaff Select, that I much prefer to use. Unfortunately, has got something wrong with it again. It's the tension plate, and the repair shop doesn't get it right. I think I'm just going to go in there and say, right, do it this time, because they keep doing like this quick fix, and you pay for it and it's not fixed. Anyway, so that's why I work with the electronic one. Much prefer the mechanical one. They are about $700 an app, and I think it's worthwhile getting it on a payment plan because you won't regret it. These machines will last you. I've had mine 25 years, the first one, and it never failed. It was still made in Germany, and now I've got the Pfaff down here that's always failing. It's the one made in China, but I think it was a dodgy one from the beginning, not like the first Pfaff Select. And then I was telling my students about it, and one of the ladies that used to come to my house, she bought the Pfaff Select 5, I think, or 5.2, which cuts off your thread as well. I was really jealous, and that was so smooth, that was so quiet. That's the most beautiful machine ever, but it was well over £1,000. So yeah, so that was out of my league, but she came in there and I was so jealous. So Pfaff really rules the roost for me, at least. And the reason why is when you look at this here at the back, you can see it's got like this little foot, and that's an extra transport, so you don't need a walking foot. It's a built-in walking foot, which is fantastic. So anyway, enough of this talking. Let's get this beautiful sleeve done. I'm gonna go and overlock it now. And again, the only thing we do is to press from the top. I don't want to flatten my gathers too much, so I'm just gonna like do the little bit where I put some steam on it and then my hand. And all I have to do now is take this and stitch in the ditch, pop it under the sewing machine, and just a few stitches back and forth will do. Here we go. As ever, I'm never sure about these big ruffles. I'm not sure. I think it would have been nicer to have the ruffle higher up. What do you guys think? You can let me know what your thoughts are there.